Mayzosoic 2024! What a wild ride it's been, huh? For years now, I've wanted to start sharing my art online publicly, but I didn't know a good way to go about it. Lo and behold, Jack from the Subjectively channel posts a prompt list for a May art challenge called Mayzosoic. I saw paleo art, and I knew I had to connect it to fossil fighters in some way, so I decided I was going to draw fan art of existing Venusaurs and make fan-made Venusaurs for the creatures who didn't already have one. I even managed to force myself to sit down and learn Blender by incorporating it into the art prompts for my original Venusaurs. Learning Blender was already one of my goals for May 2024 before I learned about the art challenge, so this worked out great. I'm still very new to Blender, but this was a nice crash course and it helped me get a lot more comfortable working with the program. Part 1. The Challenge. This challenge was challenging. I started feeling kind of burned out by the end of it, and part of that was due to the difficulties of adapting to spatial reasoning in 3D art as someone who's primarily a 2D illustrator. Once I began to understand that Blender was kind of just a digital version of creating stop-motion puppets, which I have some experience with already, I had a much easier time, and my UV unwrapping process ended up similar to how I plan patterns for plushies. I ended up with a collection of Venusaur fan art that I'm really proud of, and a bunch of 3D models that I can refine and rig for other projects in the future, as well as a bunch of new digital art skills. I also got to connect with a lot of fellow Fossil Fighters fans, which is awesome. You guys are awesome. The Fossil Fighters Discord is such a fun place to hang out and chat with folks who enjoy this goofy dinosaur series, and I'm really glad to have met them. And seeing comments from people rejoicing that there was Fossil Fighters content on their feeds really made my day every time I saw them. I'm so glad so many people still love and remember this series. Fossil Fighters is awesome! It's awesome! Part 2. My modeling process. I learned by doing, but prior to this challenge, I had been trying to sit down and use Blender for months, with no inspiration for what to use it for. I modeled a donut with Blender Guru's tutorial, and then I just stopped for a while. I might still struggle with figuring out what to make 3D models out of, as my goal isn't to become a 3D art specialist as much as a jack of all trades. However, I do have some ideas for projects in the future involving a mixture of 3D graphics and 2D flourishes. This combo is on display right now with how I'm dressed. Anyway, I should explain my modeling process. I had access to 3D model rips from Fossil Fighters and Fossil Fighters Champions, so I would usually start by finding an existing Venusaur in that file, copying it to a new file, and then using it as a reference for proportions and sizing for the new model. Then I'd start with a cube and begin roughing out the body using the extrude tool. Once I had most of the layout done, I would hide the reference Venusaur so I could focus on refining and rounding out my 3D model, but still maintaining a low poly look. Most of the time I'd start with the body, go on to the legs, then the tail, then the head, and the feet. For the mouth, I'd use the knife tool to cut out the shape I wanted and then fill in the inside of the mouth, then inset the mouth to make that kind of a gum area. I'd also carve out the eye so I knew where to paint it, and to give it a bit of extra depth. In the future, without the restrictions of a daily challenge, I will definitely plan designs more thoroughly than I did this month, and I'm excited to start making and using reference images for this process. A lot of this was just me winging it, and I think that's apparent in quite a few of the designs, no matter how proud I am of myself for completing this challenge. I also don't know how to retopologize. I need to work on that. My models in this challenge are full of tris and quads, but I tried to avoid ingons, which are just shapes that have more than 4 sides. The UV unwrapping process was a lot like taking apart a sewn object to figure out the pattern, which I really enjoy. Fun fact! I went to art school for animation and illustration initially, but somehow I ended up with a degree in fiber arts, which includes sewing, dyeing, and manipulating fabric and other materials, and creative writing, which I need more practice with. I still managed to have a lot of friends in the animation department though. I freaking love animation. I guess what I'm saying is I have a lot of interests, and I wear a lot of hats, and I like learning and using a lot of different techniques. Art has no borders besides those we create arbitrarily, you know? There may be rules for technical processes, but once you learn those processes, once you learn those rules, you can break the rules and start combining mediums and going nuts. Where was I going with this? Right, my modeling process. After UV unwrapping, I exported my UV layout and opened it in Clip Studio Paint. I have a really small second monitor, and this is not sponsored, but it was by HM Tech on Amazon if you're looking for an affordable tiny screen. It's basically a 7-inch monitor for a Raspberry Pi, and it was around $40. The colors aren't great on it, but I see the colors on my laptop screen, so the second screen is more for seeing how the texturing updates on the 3D model in real time. I have the auto refresh plugin for Blender, and I'll leave a link for it in the doobly-doo, but that's primarily what I use to see how seams line up on the model. I tried to use Clip Studio's 3D modeler program for this, but it was too cumbersome and just not very user-friendly. Finally, I used the shader tab to add some final touches. I've been using emission materials for my models because I don't feel like messing with lighting, and I set up my textures so that they're set to alpha clip, so that anything I erased in the texture registers as transparent. There isn't a good example of this on Xenotops, but here are a few examples of how I used it in my other models. It was mostly helpful with making teeth and scales for my Vevasaurs, like Aegis. The ridges on its back and teeth are actually just flat planes that I colored to look like separate parts, which saved a lot of time in texturing and which was also used in actual Vevasaur models. One other thing I noticed while I was working on these is that the original Fossil Fighters Vevasaurs have higher resolution textures on their eyes, so I tried to imitate that stylistic choice in my own models, and occasionally I took it too far. I got a few comments saying that Sitta's eyes were dipping into the uncanny valley, which is completely valid, but also very funny feedback. Look at him. He's staring into your very soul. And there we have it. That's Xenotops. I think going forward I will want to focus more on 2D art because it does tend to be less frustrating and more comfortable for me, but learning the basics of 3D modeling has gotten me out of a creative rut I've been floundering in for a couple of years, and I'm excited to keep experimenting with it. Part 3. Conclusion. My next project is going to have a much more relaxed pace, and it's something I've been working on for about 2 years now on and off. I have some time to really focus on it now, and I hope that y'all enjoy it. Here's a sneak peek. Wow. Whoa. Ooh. I also have some time-lapse ideas involving redrawing some of my old art from a previous internet life. I promise there won't be any mocking my younger self and her artistic capabilities. There are a lot of pieces I'm still really proud of for my skill level at that time, but I'd like to see how my abilities have changed and improved over the decade I haven't been posting my art publicly. Definitely stick around for that fun reflection exercise. I'd love to reach more people with my art, to provide a comfortable and friendly atmosphere to folks who might need a couple of minutes to relax and have fun, and to foster a creative and inviting environment for anyone who wants to participate. If that sounds like a community for you, and if you'd like to support my work, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and follow me on other platforms. If you want to support me financially, the link for my Ko-Fi account is in the doobly-doo below. Donations are greatly appreciated if you can spare a couple dollars. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Lo and behold, Jack from the Subjectively channel posts a prompt list for Mitten. I really gotta actually read my script and practice it before I, commit to recording. I also got to connect with a lot of fellow Fossil Fighters fans. That's a tongue twister. For the mouth, I'd usually use the knife tool that... what? Okay, hold on, let me... For the mouth, I'd use the knife tool. For the mouth, I'd use the... I'm just gonna highlight this. Read this. Okay. I got this, I can do this. What? Oh, you're listening to me? Okay, I'm nervous now. Get out of here.